yes, she was in a fascist commune. It talks about 9/11. I was like, I'm not that attached to the characters, and then I cried my way out of the last 100 pages. I already know this video is going to come out after Christmas, so this wonderful cat sweater that says Meowie Christmas, it will be already, you know, tired, gone, and I wanted to do something very nice, and it's the annual thing that I have to do, in which I'll tell you the best books that I've read this year. Now, I found out from my Goodreads account that I have reread a lot of books this year, which was one of my goals last year, and I did. But I don't know if I want to do that next year, because I reread a lot of very, very good books because I was very, very sad. But I did not discover any new good books that way. Like, there were so many possibilities that have been taken up by those rereads. So I reread the Harry Potter series, I reread Heaven Official Blessing, I reread the whole Foxhole Core series. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about the rereads, I'm going to talk about the best of the best. I have 13 books in this list because I wanted to pick out all of the 5 stars and then the best of the 4 stars, because there are some 4-star books that I still think about to this day, like constantly, every day. So let's talk about, oh my god, the first, if I think about these books too much, I might implode. Dark Rise and Dark Hair by Sete. I read them, I don't know, in the span of 3 days. These are dark fantasies set in the 1900s, but they have kind of an Arthurian legend feel, like with the knights. There's this battle between light and darkness, and it feels kind of cliche saying it out loud, but C.S. Pacat spinned it in such an original way, and the fact that we don't have the 3rd book feels illegal. I love these 2 books. The characters were so well crafted. I cared about everybody, even the villains. Like, the true villains were so scary. I have to talk about the book that I finished last night because it was, my god, Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tash. I have a physical copy somewhere. I cannot find it, but I finished it and I was like, oh my god, yes. This is a sci-fi book. It really, really reminded me of Arcane Season 2. So if you have like that funk, post-Arcane funk, really highly suggest to read this book. We follow the protagonist Valkyrie. She has been born and raised on this very weird planetoid called Gaia. And it's basically a fascist society, but she doesn't know. And she discovers it when she gets assigned not to the command track where she was thinking of going, but to the nursery to become basically breeding stock. And she kind of defects and discovers that yes, she was in a fascist commune, she was in a cult, and there's something really, really weird happening with the space and time continuous. This was a 4-star basically because there's one tiny like 50-page lull in the book, but then the beginning and especially the ending was incredible. I had my adrenaline up at 100 the entire time. So good. I'm going to talk about a series that I've been spamming to all of you for the past year. It was, I don't know, the Rowan Blood series by Kellen Graves, which is Prince of the Sorrows, Herald of the Witch's Mark, and the other book that I cannot for the life of me remember the title. Well, just 3 books. This is, as I've said a million times, this is Holly Black if she had written the Cruel Prince to be queer. You don't have a Jude protagonist, but you have a Saffron. Saffron is the human part of the changeling exchange. It's so hard to say, but he's basically a human that got kidnapped and brought to the Feywild, and he needs a scholarship to stay in the Feywild where he belongs, but everybody treats him kind of like a rag, and he extorts a scholarship from what he believes is just like another rich Fey, but he's the Prince of the Fays, and they fall in love. Writing is exquisite. Even though it's an independently published book, I want this to, I don't know, be in everybody's home. It's great, especially the 3rd book left me speechless, and the 4th book is coming out in February. It's taking me everything to just not scream into the void, because that 3rd book's ending punch in the gut. Another book that I recently read, very short book, but such an impact. Our Wives Under the Sea. This was recommended to me by one of my very good friends. Oh my god, that was made for me! She was like, if you like Jeff Vandermeer, one of my favorite writers of all time, you're going to love Our Wives Under the Sea. And I did. I did. There are two women, they're wives. One of them is a scientist and she has to go on a submarine mission for I think 3 weeks, but she stays there for 6 months with no explanation, and she comes back very different. And you're switching point of views between the wife that stayed on land and is now taking care of this new wife that she has. This is not the same person. And then you're seeing the other wife that is in the submarine for the 6 months. I wanted a little bit more. I wanted it to be a little bit longer, a little bit more detailed, but the writing was so evocative and sad and sorrowful and beautiful. It just takes nature and the unknown of the sea to 100. It was beautiful. And then probably the weirdest book that I've read this year is Idlewild. Idlewild talks about so many things. It talks about theater, it talks about fan fiction, it talks about 9/11 and trans kids. So the two protagonists are two girls. I say girls with quotations because one of them is a trans man. He doesn't know it though. They're very young at that age, and they go to this weird Steinerian school where they don't have grades, and they're putting on a theater production of I think the Othello, discovering things about themselves, especially their very intense relationship, and also they start reading and writing fanfictions about some of their classmates where they believe that they are gay. And there's also 9/11, so it's set 1 year after 9/11 in New York. I think I've said enough. This is written exactly like the pacing of The Secret History, in which it's kind of like a thriller. Like you're waiting for somebody to get beaten to death or shot, I don't know. And it was like the perfect pacing, even though it's such a messy coming of age story. It was so poignant. It spoke to me in so many ways. It really stayed with me. We are entering the 5 stars territory. So first book that it was more like a 4.75, but it still had such a huge impact on me. It's an Italian book called Sete by A.B. Radley. This is half a space opera, half it takes place on a planet, and is a planet with very limited water resources because there's this, again, weird planetoid orbiting the main planet that is sentient. So he is called the Leviathan, and this kind of monster controls the water intake and outtake of the planet. So we have this weird kid who is the only one who lives on the Leviathan and can communicate with it. Then we have another girl who is searching for her parents, where their entire solar system exploded or imploded because she believes some part of her family may be alive. And then there's another man who is searching for the cure for his mortality, and he believes that coming back home to his Leviathan, because it's his Leviathan, can get rid of the fact that he has to die. This book has everything. It's queer, it talks about religious diaspora, it talks about discrimination conflicts, and it talks about them in such a way that it's not heavy, even though the subjects are heavy and they're treated as such. It's very well crafted. It really reminded me of a book that could have been written by some of the greatest of science fiction, but it's very modern. I was like, I'm not that attached to the characters, and then I cried my way out of the last 100 pages. Safe to say, very good book. I hope they translate it. You saw me read this book in the Pinterest chooses my reading. Kevin Kwan. But what a writer! Oh, I loved the Crazy Rich Asians series. I think it was such a funny series. Like, it takes sarcasm and irony to the max while talking about these very rich people. And this does it as well. But this has more of a romantic twist to it. It talks about rich people and weddings. That's all there is to it. Like, very incredibly rich people, the one that you never see because they're so secretive about their wealth. And also the new rich, so the one that are not secretive about their wealth. It's about Rufus, who is a future earl. He kind of has to marry to get another set of riches to another woman, but he's in love with his best friend, like Eden Tong, who is the daughter of the family doctor to their richer family. It was just everything that I loved about Crazy Rich Asians, but more romantic. And I think Kevin Kwan came back with a bang this year. I'm going to talk about books that you'll probably be like, Alice, what the fuck? But I'm going to talk about the Atlas Complex. Yes, the book that has a 2.7 rating on Goodreads. I'm going to talk about it as one of my favorites this year, because I think this is when TikTok people do not understand literature that is not made for them. The Atlas series is a weird series. It's made for people who like Idlewild, for example, or who like, I don't know, Sete. Weird sci-fi fantasy books that deal with unusual concepts. So the Atlas series talks about power. That's the central theme of the book. It's not a love story. It's not a romantasy. It doesn't matter where these people end up with each other, because they love and hate each other in equal parts. All of them. That's the thing. That's what Olivia Blake was trying to do in the first book. And in the first book, she's telling you, this is how it's going to end. And then she does it. A lot of people complained about this book for doing some things that get taken away in the ending. So I don't know if people rage quit the book or just did not. I don't know if reading comprehension is so low that we cannot read between the lines. I think it's the best out of the 3 books. It's the best written, it's the best constructed. The characters have satisfying ends, even though they're very sad sometimes. And we get a corruption arc that everybody was talking about, everybody wanted it, and now that they get it, oh no, she's morally grey once again. You cannot have a morally grey woman. She has to, I don't know, kill some people but still be good. Dio Cristo, se vedo ancora una persona che critica questo libro per cose che non sono veramente successe, non lo so, mi butto dalla finestra. We entered the silly book category because I put Checkmate in this list. Chess enthusiast put the chess book in her favorites list. Big surprise, oh my god. It talks about chess in such a silly way, and it was fun. Chemistry between the characters was palpable, and I really bought into why the protagonist was not really willing to go into the chess world again, especially because she's a girl. I love it. I love people being passionate about what they love, especially if it's chess, because I love chess, even though I'm very bad at it. It was just a pleasure from beginning to end, and it was just a fun, very jolly time. And then I put funny story. Obviously. Every year I put an Emmeline Henry book in my list since I discovered her, because she's just a master at her craft. 2 protagonists get dumped by their respective partner, and their respective partner then get engaged. So the 2 protagonists, they have to live together for the time being, because they do now have 2 houses respectively, and they fall in love. The main reason that I put this here is because the main love interest, he's such a lame loser, and I love him. He's a charming loser, and he is charming not only to the protagonist, but also to everybody else, to his friends, to her friends, to the families. And I think a lot of writers want their main love interest to be charming, but they only want, I don't know, they only write him to be charming to the protagonist, so it doesn't feel like it's a characteristics of this person. But he's such a loser, wet dog of a man, and I love him so much. He also reminds me of my boyfriend, so maybe that's it. I have a type. Haha, silly me, editing Alice here because I completely forgot to talk about this book. The Arc of Undying, probably one of the coolest books that I've read this year. It talks about artificial intelligence that get treated as gods, and 2 pathetic losermans once again falling in love, and it's queer and it's wonderful. You really should read it. So I know this list is brief, but I have 2 series that I'm going to talk about. These are the 2 best series that I've read this year. They contain the best books that I've read this year, and at number 2, because this is a top 2, I have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries. Especially book 1, it really reminded me of house moving castle. It was just a wonderful time from beginning to end. I loved Emily Wilde as a protagonist. She's such me coded, like neurodivergent coded, and I love books that talk about academia, and she was so interested in fairies, and Wendell was such, I don't know, as I've said a million times, blonde and red-headed Howl trying to write a paper together about fairies, and their relationship and the relationship between them and the fairies and the village and the different people in these books. It was just heartwarming and fun, like so fun. But especially the first book, it was so quiet and slow-paced, but slow-paced intentionally to make you feel about the characters, all of it. You really cared about Emily Wilde's research. So yeah, I just loved it. And number one, it's The Magician's Trilogy. Wait, maybe I should put the first book, The Magicians, on front, and then there's The Magician's King, and then The Magician's Land. Another weird series for a weird girl, but it just worked out. So many things happen. But I do really recommend to watch the TV show. Be very disappointed in season 5 and then go to the books. It delves into very, very darker topics. This was born as, I think, a Harry Potter and Narnia parody that turned into a very, very original niche thing. Especially in the first book, we follow the protagonist Quentin, who is a 17-year-old boy. Really behaves like a 17-year-old boy. He is brilliant, very, very intelligent, but kind of like on the brink of becoming an incel. Yeah, he is very lonely, very pathetically in love with his only friend, like his best friend Julia, and he discovers that he has magic. And he goes to this very elite academy for young magicians. So especially the first half of this first book is very, very dark academia because something very dark happens and they study magic, like brutal, excruciatingly painful magic. And then it follows their lives as they discover that there's a Narnia-like other world called Fillory, in which the air is made of opium. It's weird, it's dark, it's very, very dark, but it talks about magic and wonder in such a way. And Lev Grossman has a beautiful writing style, like incredibly beautiful and so fucking funny. And that's why this is my favorite series of this year. Like, I just think about these books and cry. Happy and sad tears. These were all my favorite books of this year. And not a lot of them, if you can... Yeah, not a lot of 5 stars, but the quality definitely high. I'm very happy about it. If you want to connect with me, I have some socials, they're down below. I hope you had an amazing year. Best wishes for next year, and I'll see you, I think in 2025. Goodbye. Mwah!